The recording has started.
All right, thank you everyone for joining our meeting today. We're going to talk about the case study for Donna. And we have myself, Ashley, Della, Jordan, and Quindella. Um, Anybody want to take grabs for timekeeper and note taker?
I
I
can be the
can.
timekeeper. I'm sorry. I could be the timekeeper.
Okay.
And I can take notes.
All right, perfect. All right, and so we will start off sharing the different points for the case study. How could Donna provided more for teachers prior to the grade level? And how could teachers' final plans be effective for the instructional process? And how would the principal be able to evaluate whether the new observation format was working successful for the students? So I'm going to start off. The guidelines provided for the teachers prior to the grade level meeting, Donna could have provided an evaluation rubric that mentioned school policy and procedures.
You want me to go second?
Yeah.
To piggyback off of you, the same thing. She could have mentioned like the rubric, the procedures, the processes regarding peer observations. She could have talked to her coach and then she could present the rubric to her teachers. Another thing, like she could have put data down. Like data doesn't lie, like numbers tell the truth. And that would pretty much help those teachers who are stuck in silos, kind of like the third grade team. Like everybody else was all happy, but they were just like closed off from everybody. So that data could have helped as well too.
Yeah, I kind of building off what Della said. I think that there were some things that Donna could have done better in preparing her staff members to go out into their grade levels as leaders. I felt like they weren't set up to succeed because some pieces were missing. She could have provided the members with some research and talking points about what the research says, because there is research that backs that up. That teacher kind of input into the evaluation process is beneficial and is conducive to learning. And I also kind of mentioned that. Some type of minimum requirement of the expectations for each grade level's plan would have been beneficial, because it was kind of all over the place, and it really set that third grade team up. It kind of set the stage for there to be tension down the road, which is kind of what occurred later on in the process.
I agree. I do believe that Donna started off kind of strong in a way because she included some teachers and asked for their feedback. But there are some ways that she could have improved. I agree that she definitely should have established some type of guidelines so everyone could be on one accord. So you had the star group, and then you had that was one performative in the middle, and then you had one that was completely off. So if one grade level was doing well, then share those plans across the board so everyone is on the same page. Um, and then just to kind of add in some research behind that, when we add in Marzano, when he talks about instructional quality and student leadership or student achievement, that goes across the board. Um, she also could have included her teachers sorry, that's my timer. She also could have included her 5 teachers by engaging in like the co-creation of their peer observation rubric. So that definitely would have helped as well. In addition to the superintendent that was there.
I agree. And also, how could the teacher's final plans be effective for the instructional process? I said that the teacher's final plan to be effective for the instructional process, they could collaborate in a PLC session with their grade levels, provided with the opportunity to give feedbacks and also elaborate with the evaluation of how they'll want each measurement to be, whether they want it, how they want to be looked at.
I put down like what you just said, like the positive collaboration and learning communities. That's all the teachers working together. It could have been effective if they vertically aligned because it was all over the place. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was like cliques. Like one clique was doing their thing and they left third grade out of the picture. But in my mind, as a leader, it should be pre-K to second because you need those core skills. I've never taught elementary, I taught middle, but pre-K to second. And then obviously, because as a middle school site coordinator, our biggest issue is like that what happens in third grade? Like, why do they lose their mind in third grade? So it could have been third through fifth. They all collaboratively work together because that's when the change happens, like those test scores, the BOEs, or whatever you guys call the beginning of grade. So they all could have worked together because that elementary is like the foundational years of their life. That's when they're trying to get that stuff, and you need that vertical alignment. And we have the same issue in middle school. Six is that's the queens, queen bees, and then seventh is like the middle child, and eighth is like we're done. So that vertical alignment could have helped. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
the research from Hattie and Donahue 2016, it supports like collective efficacy because when teachers all work together and are empowered, that directly promotes student achievement. So they could have just had like that collaboration, those PLCs, that would have helped them out a lot.
Yeah, I think there definitely was some lack of consistency. I've kind of been in a situation where there wasn't that consistency across the building, and kind of one of the things I looked at it from the lens of there wasn't really any data that identified a specific need for it. I understand that the principal meant well in that she was trying to build empowerment within her staff, but I think she went about it a little bit wrong because it opened it up
Mm-hmm.
to where she's going to have to take a step back and rein in a grade level or two to make it effective. And in doing that, whenever there's an attempt to empower staff, and then they feel as if their voice isn't heard because you don't take what their plan was into consideration and go a different route, that actually goes and disenfranchises them even more. So they like it does it. The attempt was made in based off of research, I think, because it does align. I put that it aligned to some of Marzano's work too, that teachers need that buy-in in the and input into the evaluation process. But there were also some details that were kind of lacking a little bit in the case study, in that we don't know if this was going to be the main evaluation for staff or if there would be other evaluation measures. So without some more context, it was hard to say exactly the how this was going to be leveraged and utilized to impact student achievement because there wasn't a real connection in her plan and how she conveyed that to staff. So I kind of mentioned that a little bit. And then I think that it just there were some gaps in the execution of the plan. I think it was well intent that she had good intent, but the execution was kind of lacking a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree. It does mention that she uses research, but she doesn't state the research. So that definitely would have
Mm-hmm.
made a huge difference. Um, and I think that would have helped the third grade team as well because that would let them know, like, hey, there's work, there's reasons behind it. So, we don't want
Mm-hmm.
to get stuck in, um, I don't think I should do this because I've been teaching for X amount of years, or I don't have to. You could provide that research, and they'll let them know, like, this is what's going to work. Also, the plans that the kindergarten, pre-K, and first grade teachers did, it allowed for them to be reflective in their teaching practice. It was outlined pretty well. But the third grade team, like what I've noticed is that they did bring up maybe recording themselves and then providing that feedback because that's what was comfortable for them. So that kind of gave them some autonomy so they could do it multiple different ways. It didn't have to be a teacher coming in and watching, but they have what they were comfortable with, recording themselves, providing that feedback. Um, so that kind of aligns with Brookhart, which is like it's a powerful tool for self assessment. They can not only watch themselves, but you have the other teachers that can watch them too. So
Mhm.
that's what I said for my part.
Yes. And then we'll move into how could the teacher final plans be effective for the instructional process? So I said that the principal could use walkthrough observation data results. Also, they can still go back and use the teacher empowerment surveys. They also going to have opportunity for a teacher to share in PLC weekly or monthly staff meeting, and also use those end of the year test scores um, to make it be more effective.
And I also agree with you, Ashley, like that teacher
Mhm.
empowerment survey and just using that collaborative, like educational environment. I do agree with you as that well. But another thing I want to add that I didn't put down, like she kind of has to like rein some people in but that's gonna have to happen like on the back end with some like difficult conversations because what you don't want is like toxic teachers.
That's
Because
true.
my only concern was I get third grade wants to videotape themselves, but what happens when you meet that teacher, that new person that comes in and they're not cool with it? But some people are scared to speak their piece because they're being bullied. That's my only concern as like a future administrator, because we had that going on at my school where one person was bullying a whole team and it kind
Mm.
of like brought down our scores. So I do feel that the teacher empowerment survey would be a nice anonymous way for her to get like ahead of that situation. Because what you don't want is like the status quo to keep happening at one grade level, and then it brings down the whole entire school. And you're stuck with this like virus almost where that you have to like take care of it. So she has to kind of do like some stuff on the back end because it wasn't planned correctly. So she's really gonna have to rein like a particular grade level in. And then unfortunately, that's that grade level that's crucial. Like, because that's where it all starts before they
Mhm.
go into like fifth and fourth grade. So she's gonna have to rein them in hard. And I feel that empowerment survey would help, the walkthrough data, and just having those conversations with
Mhm.
the lead teachers to like leverage them to go more towards her side to be flexible with what they want to do and still maintain their autonomy. Because you want people to have their cake and eat it too, but you don't want to create a place where it disadvantages other teachers who feel like they can't have their voice.
That's true.
Yeah, I agree with Della. I think there's a little bit of a cultural issue within the culture of that one grade level.
Mhm.
And the principal has a lot of work to do with that because the they are based off of how it read, they are kind of stagnant in their practices. They feel
Mhm.
like they have no more, they feel like they know it all. And I don't care how experienced an educator is, there is always room for growth and improvement. And until they adopt a growth mindset, any work that you do, no matter what evaluation process or metric you put in place, it's not going to help them grow, which is the desired outcome of revising the observation instrument and process. So I think there's some. I think that the plans could be effective if they apply it and look at it as a way to grow and not just a checkbox to get their principal off the back. All that the agreeing to videotape a lesson was is a kind of appeasement. Just we're going to do this just to get the principal off our back, but it's a checkbox at that point. And if it's just a checkbox, you might as well not even do it if there's not going to be any type of reflection and opportunity for growth out of it because they aren't taking it seriously. So that's kind of one of the issues I had with that plan. along with it's hard for um, teachers to grow whenever it doesn't fit into the bigger school-wide vision. And I think that by having all these different grade levels using different metrics, it makes it hard to craft a school-wide vision and implement it for how to target or how to address that continuous growth that we're seeking. So that I think there were just some fundamental issues with the delivery of this from the principal level that could have made, again, meant well, but poorly executed, and a lot of room for improvement.
Right, I agree. I also feel, just to kind of add in, that she could make sure that she goes through the walkthrough observations and ask teachers for their opinion, like how was this effective? If it wasn't, that could have been a moment to share as well. Like if that was not effective, what would be a way that we could make that effective? So the surveys would definitely be a good indicator, especially if it's anonymous, so people can feel comfortable being honest. Um, and Hattie kind of talks about that in her research, where emphasizing feedback, if it's implemented well, will have a great impact on student learning. So,
Totally agree. And then our last question: how would the principal be able to evaluate whether the new observation format was working successful for the students? I said that she could use walkthrough observation data. Yeah, she could use the walkthrough observation data. Um, she could also use the end of the school year test scores, and then it still goes back to where the teachers and stuff are still sharing out.
I pretty much like agree on the
Yeah.
line with you. She can
Mm-hmm.
review those test scores. She can do the observational data. She can also meet with her grade level PLCs because
Mm-hmm.
you got to meet with your team and stuff and like discuss like areas of improvement. And then her evaluation tools, like one of the researchers was saying that it has to be geared towards like student achievement, not so much teachers,
Mm-hmm.
because the evaluations that are teacher centered tend to like be skewed toward teachers. So it makes everybody look like they're doing great, but it's mediocre stuff. It's surface stuff. But if you have like the student-centered one, you get to see like deeper what the kids are doing. What are the disconnects? What are the misconceptions? What are they not understanding? And that'll also take the pressure off of teachers, especially those veteran teachers, because they'll sit there and they'll have that air superiority. I'm not trying to take that away from them, but kind of like what Jordan said and what everybody else says, you need to learn new things because lessons change, learning changes. So
Mm-hmm.
having those student-centered evaluations and those rubrics that are centered on the kids and the achievement will kind of pretty much shine a light and humble those veteran teachers. And then therefore they have no other choice but to come to the table or else you got to go or you got to figure something out.
So I feel bad because I feel like I'm just bashing this principal and her practice. But um, based off of just the limited information we have, again, we don't know if this is going to be their formal evaluation that goes into their performance evaluation, or if it's just going to be walked through how this is going to be utilized. But based off the information we have, really the only metrics that we have to go by to judge the effectiveness are student performance data and test scores, and if there is any type of feedback given by staff on their perception of this and how well it's gone over. But we can use the walkthrough data, but the issue is there's no consistency in that walkthrough data because it's different across all grade levels. So we're not just comparing apples and oranges, it's the whole produce section. We've got bananas in there, oranges, apples, pineapples, because every grade level is doing a different thing. There's no way to compare from grade level to grade level to measure the overall effectiveness across the building. So again, it was flawed from the beginning due to design. But if that team comes back together and creates some type of evaluation rubric or instrument to accompany these, that could open the door to be a little bit more strategic in the data and information collected and how to leverage it. But for me, without that consistency, even if it's consistency across different grade spans like K2 and 3, 5, like I think Della said, that would be better because you could at least have some measurements to where you could interpret what is being successful and what's not. Because when you're just comparing grade level to grade level like that, there's just not a common metric to make a sound analysis off of.
I would agree. So based off of what everyone's saying, I pretty much wrote the same thing. Definitely use informative assessments as a way to kind of see if um, the plans that were in place were effective. Now, just given that she takes the feedback and she actually changes these things that we're sharing, it could be effective across the board. We lay out the foundation in the rubric and say, all right, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z in these classrooms. Um, it could be uniform across the board. Also, you know, using those feedback driven instruction, making sure that when you get that feedback, that they are implementing that in their daily practice, and yeah, just involving teacher leaders to collaborate, evaluate in the process. That's going to build trust and ensure that the system remains responsive. And that comes from Diamond 2001, the information that I got.
Okay. And then we move into the section where we're going to talk about how's this relating to us as in our role now. Um, I say that, as a teacher, this kind of put me like an awkward moment where I'm kind of like scramble to a new evaluation method where I have no clue of what guidelines are set in stone, whether I want a walkthrough observation or whether I want this to be kind of like a coaching moment because some teachers said they want to come in and observe, they want to come in and teach and then give some positive stuff. So I don't know what I want. I mean, I rather, like they said, I rather discuss it with the grade level, but also too, I like the part where Della said, you know, as a third grade teacher, it does feel okay. Let's see what third, fourth, and fifth grade say upon this. Let's kind of like talk this over, not only just with the grade level, but let's see what those upper elementary grade level think. How could we do with this? Because we don't know if this at the beginning or whether this is at the end of the school year. So she kind of like put it out there, but then she's trusting us. So it's like she didn't really set anything in stone for the staff to go by.
I do agree. Like Ashley, like as a
Mm-hmm.
site coordinator, I like to have like the best laid plans. Like that was a great plan, but it's like deja vu for me because we've been through a lot of administrators and their leadership styles are different. But one thing that I saw is like it starts off with good intentions, but then if it's all over the place, it's gonna fall by the wayside. And teachers start just checking off boxes, like Jordan said, like you're just checking off a box for compliant. And if you're gonna do that, you might as well not do anything at all. But certain grade levels had buy-in, and that was awesome. The disconnect was like those people that took forever to bring their stuff back. And that's where you have to kind of sort of like get those people that are great and get them on board with your great plan that's already laid out, and then zero in on those people that are on the fence. And you have to have compromise, just like I think what's his name? The book that we use all the time with the author that begins with like a D. He always talks about like when you're placing teachers is a compromise. So is new implementation of programs. That's a compromise. So we have to get people on board for student achievement. And how you do that is just by like putting out surveys, talking about the implementation of processes, and coming armed with a lot of research and a lot of facts so that they have no other choice but to join the team or else. Because it's about student achievement, it's about that data, and it's about those scores for those kids to grow. And we all have to like work together as a school. And if you include those teachers in the process, but you have boundaries with it, I think that'll create a better process.
Yeah, so when reading this one, I kind of had to read it a couple times in an attempt to remove my own personal bias from this because I've lived that where I've had to be the face of something in a building as a teacher or as a leader. Um, for a principal, and it ended up being no consistency across the board, and it was doomed from the beginning. So I tried to remove my own personal bias from it. But I've seen plans like this now supporting multiple districts. I've seen plans like this put into action where there's no consistency, and it just makes it hard to measure growth and see what's working and actually make something scalable. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt bad for those leaders that were tasked with that because in the end, yes, they can lead it, but a principal has a job, and that is to be the leader and be a decision maker after gathering input in the decision making process from the staff. They have to kind of lead, and it was almost like the principal in this case just sat back and let others lead. But like certain grade levels, just not having the buy-in that will doom any initiative within a building like this, or anything. It doesn't solve the issue. The root cause and the root issue with this was that third grade group that just was stagnant, just staying where they were, not open to growth, and they didn't have that growth mindset. And that's just a cultural thing that they have cultural work to do in that building. But I think it kind of gave me some ideas. Like right now at the state level, we are working on revising both the ITF and the school library media coordinator evaluation instruments, and doing a revised version of that and implementing it in the next 2 years. So it did give me some kind of insights on how they need to have opportunity to be involved and reflect more on their work and have input into the process. So I tried to uh, and apply it to what I'm currently working on there.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely relate as a teacher, especially sitting on a grade level now where we're kind of like, I guess you can name us like the star grade level. Um, Recently, we created EOG remediation plans, and I was the person that led the conversation for that. And so we put something in place that was laid out for third, fourth, and fifth. And we were told that apparently the other grade levels weren't really, they didn't have much of a solid plan. Now, mind you, uh, for one, I shouldn't have known that information, but for two, there was no foundation laid out, so we created it ourselves. So I could definitely relate to that scenario. I think that if the other grade levels had that opportunity to know what exactly were they supposed to do, what are we looking for, what are you looking for, what is this superintendent looking for, how are we going to lay out these plans so that we are making sure we're meeting the needs of our students. um, and that should have just been something that was communicated. So when we shared our plans with the leadership team, they were like, yeah, these are great. We can share this across the grade levels and everyone can use the same one. And I'm just thinking like, well, why is this not something that was laid out in the first place? But I mean, neither here nor there, I guess. But um, yeah, I definitely, after reading that case study, I had to read it a few times like you, Jordan. And I just was like, oh man, I definitely am living that. So
All right. And so I know our time is winding down. So something that surprised me with this is like the principal just turned everything to the staff, trust their judgment, and without setting any, like I said, any guideline policy or stipulation. over the evaluation process. And what would I have done? I would have created an action plan that would have explained the process of a new evaluation process, that would have gave the option, maybe picking like 2 or 3 things, and then I still would have still hear from each grade level of how they feel about the process, and then I would have narrowed it down to a conclusion. Okay, this would be our new evaluation plan.
What surprised me is that she went into this with like no research, no consultation, no plan, no action plan. She just let the teachers like do what they want. And that starts off good, but you gotta like
Mm-hmm.
do it with gradual release. So that's what really surprised me. And then what would I do? I would use like the data to create an action plan connected to student achievement and teacher empowerment, kind of similar to what we did in class. Collaborate
Mm-hmm.
with the school improvement team and district to create an evaluation model. Research-based expectations like that are not overwhelming because they did say the teachers don't want a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, she just like turned everything over to her staff with no guidance. That really shocked me. So
Mm-hmm.
oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, same thing as Della said. So no action plan. That it didn't have a gap analysis to know like what is this even trying to address? The I guess what kind of gets me too is like the delivery of it all. In that it was just handed over to the teachers. It almost sounds to me as if it's a principal that's on their last year before retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Is the vibe that it gave me. But kind of stepping away from that just a little bit. What really shocked me is that I think there's this common practice of principals. We know who our like top 2 to 5 strong building level leaders are, and those are the ones that everybody else kind of listens to. But we lean on them so heavy that others feel like their voice doesn't matter. So while we're trying to empower them, we disenfranchise them. They feel their voice isn't heard and feel their voice isn't as valuable as those 2 to 5, 6 people. And when we do that, I think a better way to do this, because those couple people, the 2 to 6, we've all been them, to where we feel like we're being punished for extra work. And so I think a different way to approach this to get a more well-rounded voice and give some more leadership opportunity would be, instead of handpicking your favorites or the people that you always go to, I think it could have been beneficial to explore maybe opening it up for like a application type process within the building for staff to apply to lead this. I think that there's, again, going back to the very beginning steps of this, I think there were opportunities for improvement to execute this in a way that was more meaningful and intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I would agree that one of the things that surprised me is that, as you guys said, there was no plan in place. And I get the intention was good. She wanted to use her teachers, but there was no plan in place. I think I would definitely do the process we're doing right now. Like, just follow that OPTEL process, survey your teachers. I'll get an idea of what they want to be a part of, and use that to, put in the steps to make the empowerment work at your school. I would definitely make sure also to sit with the teachers on the sit team, the principal, the district leaders, like your area superintendent. Use those people to establish guidelines and a rubric for peer observations. You can conduct walkthrough observations and other things to assess the effectiveness of the observation and provide feedback. And then seek that feedback from the teachers if something's not working, if they have a concern or they want feedback or would like to share with you what's not working, like, let that happen. Let that be something you share, but also keep it in place with the boundaries. If you have a certain vision for the school, let that be something that they all focus on. But still, let them have their voice so they can share, you know, their concerns.
Yes. Is there anything else you want to share out?
You want me to stop the recording?
Yes.